Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors, men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. Racing and ranching, that's my next guest's way of life. Just coming off Dakar, Hunter Miller is now on the way to the hammers. Hunter Miller, it's really good to have you on here. I've actually known you a bit of time now, not racing KOH, but prior to that. But we're going to talk about your life, and I'm glad that you're able to come on here and do that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It has been a while. I remember my very first dirt riot race was in 2015, and it was that year that it just never, ever quit raining. And you were the one place still racing, so we showed up.
Yeah, we never let the weather stop us. I mean, that's part of off-road racing. You're outside, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember. I learned that there. That's for sure.
No fair weather racing with us. So let's get started at the very beginning. Well, for those that don't know, Hunter Miller is a UTV racer. Started off in ATVs. We'll get into all that. Just got off the Dakar. He's won King of the Hammers. We'll get into all that, but it's really a pleasure to have you on here. So let's get started with the first question. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Dallas, pretty sure. Anyway, somewhere around there. Dallas has grown into what it is now, but somewhere around Dallas.
Right.
I grew up in Rockwall until I was about second grade, which was, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes outside of Dallas. And then my parents had purchased some property in Greenville, Texas, which is about 30 minutes further east of that. We moved out there when I was in second grade, and still live there today, actually, on the same property. We all of our family has houses on the same property. My brother's house is, maybe 500 yards from mine, and my parents' is about a quarter mile away, and it's all on the same land.
All right, and your brother, you're talking about Cody, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I've got another half-brother that lives in Austin, and then 2 half-sisters as well.
Okay. And Cody is younger than you?
Yep, we're about 18 months apart or so.
Okay. All right. And you're at about 40 right now?
Yeah, don't remind me. I turned 39 while we were at Dakar a couple weeks ago.
Okay, you just turned 39.
Yeah, I'm pushing 40 though.
Well, nothing starts to really hurt consistently until you hit 58. Just you got time.
Yeah, okay, I'm solid then. I got shoot, man.
Yep.
Feel young again already.
There you go. Okay. So growing up, let's take it from Greenville, since that's probably where most of your memories are at. What was it like? I mean, imagine it was, if you've got that kind of property, ranching or something?
Yeah, I mean, mainly it was my dad never really wanted to live in the city. So while we were still in Rockwall, he had bought, just a couple of acres out here. And we would come out on the weekends and camp and stuff. When I was 2 years old, I actually, we were camping out there, and my dad had like this 10-acre compound where he raised wolves. Well, he was keeping one for a guy, and the guy had not told him that the thing had been kind of abused and poked and prodded by kids and stuff through fences and, all that fun stuff. And about 2 a.m. one night, I snuck out of the tent and decided I wanted to go see the wolves, and took a bag of potato chips to go feed them. Stuck my arm in, and that one decided that he liked, 2-year-old arms more than potato chips.
Ow.
So yeah, I've got a big old scar on my arm, some on my shoulder and under my armpit, on my back a little bit where off. But luckily my parents heard me screaming and stuff, and came and got away, and now it's just a cool scar. But we would always go out there and camp. And yeah, when we were 6 years old, my dad got us some dirt bikes for Christmas, and we would just go out there on the weekends and spend pretty much the entire time riding in the field and being kids in the country, basically.
So that wolf that left all those scars, that had to be a pretty good story for the girls, as you're growing up. I went and fought wolves as a 2-year-old,
I mean, that's the pickup line that I used on my wife that I have now. So
perfect. There you go.
Yeah, worked great. No, hardly anybody believes me when I tell them until I explain it a little bit.
Yeah, that's almost as good as Tom Waits' fighting off the bear with a tomahawk.
Not quite as legendary as that, but
we'll
I
make
was
it
younger.
so. We'll make it so.
At least he had a weapon to defend himself.
Yeah, exactly. You just had potato chips.
That's it.
So you started riding early, and that was on the ATVs. And did you guys? You started racing not too long after that. Am I correct?
Yeah. So we started on dirt bikes, and then my cousin and her boyfriend came over for Thanksgiving, and her boyfriend bought a couple of quads, and we spent all day Thanksgiving riding them and thought it was the coolest thing ever. So my dad got us a couple of Yamaha blasters for Christmas, and I was maybe 7 or 8 at the time, I think. Maybe a little older, maybe 8, and Cody was about 7 or 6. So of course we wanted to go to the local motocross track that we always go to and get out there and first thing in the morning one weekend, and we're riding and stuff, and the track owner came up to my dad and was like, "Hey, how old are they?" And he said, "Oh, 6 and 8 or something like that." And they said, "Oh, that's cool. We all got to leave." He's like, "What?" Well, apparently the insurance didn't allow you to ride quads on that track until you were 14. So we're all bummed, and we're loading up and everything. And another local guy came over and, asked why we were leaving so early, and, said that basically they won't let us ride here. So he said, "Well, man, I've got a piece of equipment. I just need a piece of land. I'd love to build my own track," and Dad's like, "Well, I have land, but I have no equipment." And turned out that this guy, that's a buddy of ours now, lives, 2 miles from us, and was over at our place the next weekend with a bulldozer getting started on our own motocross track. And so we rode and rode and rode once that, and it grew, over time, obviously. And we were in the Honda shop one day and came across a flyer for the Texoma Quad Racing Association, which was a cross-country series that was having its very first race, and it was in Lake Murray. And I still have a picture somewhere of it, but I think there was maybe 9 or 10 people there total. I mean, total. And went up there, and, we were obviously young, and there was only 2 classes, an amateur and, whatever they called the expert class, I guess. My dad raced the expert on his Banshee, and me and Cody both raced amateur on our blasters, and ended up getting second, and it grew from there. Like, we raced that whole series, and it eventually transformed into a motocross series down the road. And man, that series went on for must be 20 years. I mean, it only more recently kind of shut down, but for a long time it grew and grew. And when it transformed into a motocross series, it was at the track owner or the series owner's house basically in his backyard in Oklahoma somewhere. And I remember showing up one time and we're in practice, and all of a sudden the cops showed up and shut the whole thing down because of noise complaints.
Ugh.
And my dad went up to the series owner and said, "Hey, well, I've got a track, and we won't have to worry about noise complaints, you know." So there for 4 or 5 years, every single TQRA race was at our place, and rubber band start and all.
Wow.
And so it grew and grew, and all of a sudden the series is going to other tracks, and we're obviously getting older, and went on to start racing national series and kind of went up through the ranks and all the way up to racing pro. And that's where it led us into side-by-sides.
Okay. Sounds pretty cool. The when I know that when you came out to Dirt Riot to race with us, we already had a couple of racers that had, I think, raced with you guys earlier. And they said, "Oh yeah, the Miller brothers are going to come out to this race." And I was like, "Okay." I didn't know who you guys were because we focused on the big cars.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to start racing UTVs and stuff, so we said, "Yeah, let's do this." But we didn't know anybody that raced GNCC or any of that kind of stuff. But that was Sean Hess and Zach Beaver.
Yep.
You guys raced against them for years, didn't you?
Oh yeah, on quads. And Sean raced cross country on quads, and so I guess going back into that, Sean would always come out to our place for local cross country races that we had, or we'd see him at another one, and we'd race them there. And they became good friends over the years. This is way before side by sides, and back then all they had was rhinos, and I remember at some of the WPSA races when we raced motocross, and they would have side-by-sides out there, and I was like, man, I would never be caught dead in one of those things. They're so slow, and all they do is break instantly, and they cost a fortune. And a fortune back then, I think you could probably fully build one for 10 grand.
Right.
But I thought I had no interest in it whatsoever. And so we eventually, though, the support for quad racing started to slow down quite a bit, and CanAm had just released the Commander and asked if we wanted to give it a shot. We're like, not really, but I don't know, we'll try it,
Right.
And there wasn't really anywhere to race, so we talked with Sean a little bit about it, and he was pretty into the idea too. And so we went to our local series, which was Torn, and asked Curtis Kirchmeyer, who owned it, if he'd be interested in having, a side-by-side series. And NCC had started doing it the year before, or several years before. And so it's not like it was a brand new thing, but it was going to be kind of locally. And so that was 2011 or 12, I believe. And so Curtis is actually an old dirt track racer, so he thought it was awesome, and everybody took to it. Like, it spread kind of like wildflower. I think we had maybe 10 cars at the first one, and it grew exponentially over the next couple of years. I mean, it got to be pretty dang big. And, of course, there were the early days of side-by-side racing growing pains, but it kind of worked itself out. The cars, of course, changed and evolved like they still are. Even 2011 is not that long ago. And you look at what we're racing now compared to what we were racing back then. I mean, I remember thinking 26-inch tires were just huge,
Right.
And now we're on 37s. But, I guess that's a long answer to, yeah, I knew Sean really well back then.
Okay, cool. And then you guys, what you were saying then about, the 26-inch tires and those racing, back in 2011, and imagine what it was like when those kind of rigs first raced at the Hammers.
I can't. I don't see how it's even possible. I don't see how you could even get through Hammers now on 32s.
Right. Well, I put on the first race, UTV race, at the Hammers, Dave and Jeff, that's when they were both running it, didn't want anything to do with it. And so I had like 20, 21 cars, 22 cars show up, and it was madness. We didn't run the full trails. We ran, I don't even remember all the trails that we ran, but we ran 5 or 6 trails plus the desert section. And I figured it was going to take everybody, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, for the first guy to come in. And I wasn't even at the start finish line because we had no radio comms then. I mean, it was just, everybody was on their own. There was no tracking. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, but we had people spread out all over. But the first car come in, and I mean, it was pretty quick. So they were all kind of staying together. And I think it was, Mitch Guthrie Sr. was the first one through. And then I remember, I think it was Casey Curry had to drive like the last 5 or 6 miles in reverse, but finished because he had no forward gears.
Yeah.
So
wow.
It was pretty crazy.
You don't remember what trails y'all ran back then? Because I'd be super curious.
I know we did. I can't even remember the names now. There's one in the very back corner that we came up. Then I think most of the time the track goes up it now, but it was with really huge boulders. It's not Sunbonnet, but it's one of those way in the back corner. And it off of the southeast side, and it was when we pre-ran it. We ran it in a Yamaha Rhino stock, and we got up it, but it was a struggle. And I said, okay, that's about the hardest thing that we can do. Now I think there's even like a dirt road that goes right around the whole trail.
I think that's most trails out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, but unless they put the virtual checkpoints in the bottom of the trail and do it 3 or 4 on each trail, that's what you're going to have. It's just the way it is.
It is, unfortunately. It's still a race at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And if you're out there to win the race, then you're gonna do it the fastest way possible,
Right. Exactly.
It sucks. I mean, I will say most of the time, most of the trails, going up Spooners, they always have the bypasses open, and like I said, if you're trying to win the race, you're an idiot if you don't take them.
Right.
And any bypass that's available, I personally am all for, staying in the rocks because I really enjoy it, but at the same time, there's some obstacles that will just turn into a cluster and ruin the entire race, if it bottles up. So there has to be options around it in order to keep everything going. But it, back to going through in a stock Rhino, I remember the first year when we went there in 2020, I remember thinking Chocolate Thunder was some hard trail, and actually it can be a pain in the ass, but
depends on the year.
Yeah, it really does. Sometimes we're going down it this year, I think, so it's kind of just a hop and a skip and a jump, but sometimes going up it can be a real pain. But I remember my brother, he drove for Yamaha for a couple of years, and he had a stock Yamaha Wolverine that we had there. And one of the late nights, he went up there and went up the whole thing in that thing on 25s. I couldn't believe it. And then the next day, we're like halfway struggling to get up it on our cars.
Yeah, that's. I used to run the Chocolate Thunder for Dave. He had me come out, and that was right after there was a big pile up in there, and the course got really widened, and people were in danger, media and everybody. So that's when they started fencing it off. And so I used to run that area just because Dave knew that if there was a problem and I needed to stop the race or talk to drivers, the drivers would listen to me. I was used to dealing with BLM. I was used to dealing with law enforcement and all and spectators and all that. So it was an easy place for me to have recovery crews and all that kind of stuff. But Chocolate Thunder is one of those places that it depends on the weather. If it's a heavy rain year, that can get so blown out that all of a sudden, you got 6-foot, 8-foot, 10-foot, 12-foot walls in there.
Yeah, it's gnarly. I remember maybe it was 22 or 23. The trail was kind of a pain, but pivot rock was still there, but there was a big hole in front. There's still a big hole in front of it, but the pivot rock was kind of in the same spot that it always was, and you had basically two lines, one up the middle or one to the right around the pivot rock and then up. Well, we're there, watching all the crazy people one night, and this old beat truck like hooks onto it with its back wheel when it's trying to go around it to go down. And this is Wednesday night before the race. And he drugged that gigantic boulder down right into the line. And the middle line, you pretty much had to winch. It was a nightmare. But the pivot rock line was pretty easy. But everybody's watching this and they're like, oh my God, what the hell are we going to do, And somehow actually there was a line to the left, which is kind of that wall line that's there now that when we went up qualifying, it was kind of the fast one that everybody was taking.
Right.
I think my brother was one of the first ones to go up that, and he had a mechanical early in the race, and no, actually maybe it was in 4400 that he did it, and there was kind of a bottleneck right there, and he went up that side and passed a bunch of people. I'm sure people had done it before, but he was the first one I remember doing it,
Right.
And
I've seen that wall. I swear that wall on the left-hand side at times has been 16 to 18 feet is what it appeared.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. And it is straight up,
Yep.
And sometimes you get out there, it's super easy to get up, and sometimes you are shitting your pants going up it.
Exactly.
But it changes quite a lot every time we go out there. So
well, that's one of the attractions of the hammers. You can say you ran jackhammer one year and it's easier, and then the next year it's just, it's terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it depends on the pre-running too, and it, like you said, it's super weather dependent. I remember I've gone out there pre-running before and we just drive straight up back door like it's nothing. But then when it gets blown out, there's no way. So.
Right. And it'll get blown out because if the weather doesn't do it, then all of the spectators that go out there and every night and tear the place up.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But like you said, that's part of the fun in the race is everything changes. I mean, this is going to be my 5th year, and honestly, I'm just now kind of getting the basic lay of the land, but your main lines and where they go, but it's never the same. That's for sure.
Right. So what was the decision to go to the hammers? Was it done by your sponsor or was it on a bucket list?
No, honestly, I didn't know that much about it. Back when we raced your race in 2015, we were racing cross country. And after that, we went on to GNCC and we did that for 3 years. Then we went to Works in 2019 and we did that for a couple of years. But hammers was never really on my radar until one year Kyle Cheney raced it. Right. And I think that was 2019. And, we were good buddies with Kyle and have raced against him for a long time. And so I kind of watched it and was like, oh, that looks fun, but Polaris had been completely dominating it for years and years and years. And CanAms had never won it. And they won it too bad. And so going into 2020, they wanted to make a real effort to get a Maverick or an X3, on the podium or actually to win. And so they basically put it in everybody's contract. And we were all about it anyway because it looked like fun. And Kyle he was going to do pretty well the year before, but had a mechanical issue. And so his race ended like 30 miles in, just like a radiator fan or something stupid that took him out. But, it kind of was on the radar of wanting to do it. I still didn't know anything about it, but other than, we went out there for a photo shoot one time and Kyle took us over and literally showed us Chocolate Thunder. And I said, there's no way in hell that you can drive up this. Like, that's impossible, And so we did a little research and good friend of ours, Cody Taylor, and has been my brother's co-driver for a long, long time. But this will be the first year that he's not riding with him. But he's been into rock crawling his entire life. So, we built some pretty badass cars. S3 Power Sports built the chassis for us, and they were super boat sided. And I mean, they were really built for rock crawling. But, the first time we went pre-running out there, I didn't know how fast to go through the rocks. I didn't know anything. And we didn't know if we wanted to race a 72-inch car versus 64. So we built two of those, and it seemed like 64 was going through the rocks better. So that's what we decided to race. Like, we were literally just kind of making it up as we went along, and got there with our work suspension setup, and we were so far off that it wasn't even funny. I swear I spent the entire week before doing nothing but suspension testing.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. Luckily, we had George White from Double E and Doug Roll from Elka there with us, and I mean, they never stopped working. And by the time race time came, we had badass cars. But before that, it was a bit of a nightmare, But yeah, that race turned out well. I mean, I look back and I remember how tough it was getting ready, and how hard we worked and everything else. And we didn't know any better. We showed up with two 10x20 easy ups and learned very quickly that you do not want to be out there with that.
Especially if the wind comes up at all.
Oh, and it did. It sure did. It was miserable.
Yeah, you always have to prepare for that. Well, I don't like to use the W word, but I'm not on the lake bed, so I can do it. That wind, or what we call Mariah, when it starts ripping out there,
Yeah.
it is insane, just absolutely insane.
It's even better when you have wind and rain.
Oh yeah,
that just makes for a great time.
Yeah, and the lake bed is, when it becomes a lake bed, it is. I mean, you don't even move across it.
No, it's actually insane. Like, it was pretty wet and nasty last year, and it was awesome during the race because the dust was down, but man, was it a mess.
Right. So those early years of racing, you're racing the cross country style racing and stuff, and the GNCC, and you get into the hammers, and then Dakar comes up. How did was that another one of those Can-Am moments?
Well, so Dakar's a few years down the road, but basically, I guess it was about 5 years ago. That's right. The first time I started paying a little bit of attention to Dakar was 2020 when Casey Curry went over there, and he won that year, and everybody's like making such a huge big deal out of it. And obviously, I knew what Dakar was, but I didn't understand how big it was. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I started paying attention a little bit, and then, Mitch Guthrie and Seth go over there, and I see the whole program they're running and all this stuff. And then another buddy of mine, Phil Henderson, who was at BRP at the time, was obviously Can-Am started putting a good bit of effort into Dakar, and so he was involved with that, and when we chat about it and stuff, and I start paying more and more attention, and I'm like, man, this is pretty gnarly and pretty freaking badass. And so, but I can't really grasp it still, like racing that far. And honestly, I didn't grasp it until I did it this year fully.
Right.
But you start looking into it and you're like, that looks like a lot of fun, then you start understanding how expensive it is. And you're like, yeah, probably all it's going to do is look fun to me. I don't know that I'll ever get the chance to do that. But, I kind of was nudging myself that direction every year, like paying more attention to it and following it more, and kind of having conversations with sponsors about it to see if, it's something that anybody had an appetite for. And of course they all do, especially when you start looking at the visibility that it provides and all of that. But it's still just insanely expensive. I could race hammers, for a decade for what it costs to do Dakar one time.
Right.
But the opportunity kind of came up last second this year. I mean, I've been talking with Can-Am about it kind of serious for about 3 years now, but again, the opportunity wasn't really there. And this year when they released the Maverick R, they wanted it to go over there and win, And so the stars kind of aligned, and some guys on the team had moved off onto T1s and other things. And so there was an open seat, and I got the chance, Can-Am, of course, was not able to fund the whole thing. I had to come up with a bunch of other sponsor money, but, kind of dove right in, and it was never really a for sure thing until no BS, probably 2 weeks before we left. I mean, I went and did Morocco just to kind of get a feeling for rally racing. And I had already been talking with Andrew Short for a couple of years about doing it with me, because obviously he had been racing it on a bike for a long time. He lives in Texas, and only a couple hours from me. And friend of mine knew him through cross country racing in Austin and connected us, and he was into the idea. He thought it'd be fun because he loves the race so much, and thought it'd be cool to help me and go drive for it. But so we went and did Morocco, and man, I absolutely loved it. It was, it was a 5-day race, so nothing like Dakar, but still pretty long stages, and kind of gives you the lay of the land on how FIA racing works and how serious it is over there. And because it is a completely different world. I mean, not only is rally racing, like the discipline of it, completely different, but the rule structure and everything over there is very serious.
Right. And navigation plays a big part of that racing.
It's huge. I mean, and luckily Andrew's very, very good at it. I think car navigation's a little different than bike navigation, because he's not used to having tracks to follow. He's used to following the road book exactly, where me, on the other hand, I'm used to just following the tracks wide open, So I would lead us astray every once in a while, and he'd have to figure it out, which was a bit of a pain. But he would always get us right back there. I mean, there was one day where we got turned around for about 30 minutes, but that was by far our worst one. And then one time at night where, trying to navigate like that at night where you're going off landmarks, but you can't see anything. So he has no reference point to go off of is crazy difficult. And we were finishing in the dark a lot. So, we kept it going, but, in hindsight, there's so many things that we can do so much better next year, and navigation's a big part of it. Like me understanding kind of like the direction the course is going, and finding the cuts. Because it's not like you can cut the course. I mean, if you knew where every waypoint is, you can just do a straight line from point to point to point. And it's not like it's cheating, right. But you have no idea where those waypoints are. And so you have to follow the road book, and you have to cut corners when you can, because you don't want to do, all the distance, but within reason. Because when you start cutting corners, your Odo starts getting off, and you better hope you hit a waypoint that you can, or a spot that you can recal off of. Otherwise, you are going to be off in the middle of nowhere and have no clue where you are,
Right.
So definitely I have a lot of work to do this year in understanding the navigation side of it a lot better, because I learned very quickly, it does not matter how fast you are not going to win out there if you don't have a strong grasp of the navigation as the driver also.
Have you heard of Jimmy Lewis?
Oh yeah. Okay. And Andrew's really good friends with him and everything else. So I know Andrew works with him quite a lot, actually. So I mean, we've got plans this year of making sure next year when we show up, we're dialed.
Right. Getting that, because that is navigation is so key in that kind of racing.
Absolutely. And on top of that, I'd never driven in the dunes at all. So
oh wow.
I had to learn that as well. Morocco, I was pretty pathetic. When I went to Morocco to test, I mean, we get over to Mazuga, and Chaleco took me for a ride in the dunes, and it was pouring rain. I couldn't see anything, and I was shitting my pants. I was terrified, because I grew up racing or riding in the dunes on quads when I was real young, up till about 13 or 14. After that, I didn't. But on a quad or stuff, and you can just climb things. It's not a big deal. In a side-by-side, especially one of those rally cars that have all the electronics and a windshield and all this stuff all over them. Like, you can't see hardly anything out of them. And I can't imagine what a T1's like, but they're also heavy and they're restricted, so they don't have a ton of power. And so you got to really know what you're doing to even get to the top of these dunes. And then on top of that, trying to go fast, and when you get stuck, you are stuck. So it took me a little bit of time to get comfortable and all that. By the time we left Morocco, I was okay. But by the time we left Dakar, like, I was really looking forward to the dune days. I was actually really sick of rocks, which was kind of funny, but the rocks in Saudi are not like the rocks in Johnson Valley. I'll tell you that right now. But
so what's the difference?
They're like razor blades.
Okay.
Every one of them. The rocks in Johnson Valley, I mean, there's rocks everywhere, but it's a beat-in trail, and they're worn down from rain and all of this over time. Over there, and you can kind of get out of them a little bit. Over there, if you have a terrible starting position, you're going to be the 60th tire that has ever touched this rock in its existence, and so and it's not like it's rocks you can get away from. I mean, imagine like a prairie, except every blade of grass is a rock, and that is what it is like. You are literally racing across big, sharp gravel that's about the size of your fist or bigger,
Wow.
And you do your best to avoid the big ones, but you can't avoid the rocks. No matter how many cars go in front of you, I mean, they're still there, So learning a different driving technique, you can't be super aggressive through that stuff, or you're going to be changing tires all day, like I was. And, it doesn't hurt you that much to back it down 10 or 15%, but, changing a tire takes you 5 minutes. Well, by the end of the rally, I changed like 16 or 17. It's an hour and a half,
Right.
It's huge.
So then, where did you get your dune, or where do you think your best dune practicing would be in the States? Would it be Glamis?
I think so. Glamis or, Little Sahara is close to me, but I don't think it's very big. And they don't have giant dunes. Now, granted, the giant dunes are actually the easy ones to me. It's the little ones that are always cut on the backside. They're broken completely and really sharp, really close together, and very easy to get stuck in. And they will also bite you because you can't really see the transitions very well. So maybe it would be good for that, but I think it's more Glamis would be great. I think anywhere that you just go set out waypoints and figure out how to get there as quickly as possible, just based off cap heading is going to be good practice,
Right.
It's not necessarily getting through the dunes without crashing the car that's that difficult. It's, doing it as short a distance as possible. And don't get me wrong, there were definitely some parts that were a pain to get through where I had to loop around, but it's not the biggest problem, that's for sure.
Right, figuring that cap heading and distance, and then when you have to go around something, then you gotta throw that calculation in there as well, and some of it's a guesstimation.
It really is, and luckily Andrew's like a magician with it. I mean, it's crazy. He will be going over a dune and just based off nothing but cap heading, he's like, it's going to cut hard to the right after this, and sure enough, every single time you crest that dune and it's cutting to the right. So I just got to the point where I would start cutting to the right way before we get to the top of it and shaving distance that way,
Right.
Or left, whichever way it was. But, those are things that I need to understand myself, and so it's just natural because, the navigator over there, they have got their hands full. It's not like they're just reading off a GPS screen and they can look away and, watch the birds for a minute and then go right back and look at the GPS screen and pick right back up where they left off. If they lose focus and, kind of lose where they are in the notes or anything like that, like, it is a pain. It is serious work for them to get back on track, and keep you going in the right direction. And when they're trying to figure it out, like, that was another thing I was bad about, is I'm still just pushing tracks as fast as I can. And by the time we realize we're off, we're 10K away from where we need to be. So it takes, on the driver's side, understanding that, hey, this isn't right, even though everybody's going this way. And a lot of times it would come back because the front cars that kind of burn that in are really, really good at it. Sometimes it would come back and it was actually a big cut, which worked out in our favor. And like I said, one time we drove around blind for 30 minutes. So, and you have no choice but to go backwards, back to your last known spot, recal, and then hit the road book perfectly,
Right. Yeah. I work as a course crew official on the Rebel Rally for the girls navigational rally here in the States. And, I work with Jimmy because he's the course director, and that guy is phenomenal when it comes to, I swear you can spin him around blindfolded and then ask him which way stop him and ask him which way he's heading, and he'll give you a cap heading that's dead on, and it's like, how in the hell do you even do that? It's like a internal gyro or something. I don't know.
Okay, so take that person and then flip him around 180 and go as far away from that as you possibly can, and that's me. So you could ask Andrew. I think he got a little nervous when we were in Morocco, because my wife always makes fun of me. Like in a casino or something, I am lost, like I'm in a maze. I walk out of the room, I go the wrong direction every time. It doesn't matter. We're in Morocco, like, the first couple hotels we were staying at were these badass resorts and everything, and they're big, so it was easy to get turned around. But literally every time we'd walk out of the room, I would turn the wrong direction and just walk off. But I'm super confident about it. So I always say I'm wrong, but I'm confidently wrong. Even when we got to the other bivouacs, when we were staying in the tents, every morning, wrong direction, every time, without fail. So my sense of direction is just not that great with that.
That needs work then somehow.
For sure. I don't know the best way to do it. I downloaded a cap app in my phone because, like, if we're going at 360 and Andrew tells me the next node is at 45, I need to understand how big of a turn that is,
Right.
Which going from that is pretty easy, but 120 to 217 maybe is not as easy, for people. So there's a lot of little things like that I can practice in my everyday life that are going to make a big difference, until it becomes second nature for me, like it is for the people that have been doing it forever. Because, you think about most of the people that are racing over there, they live, eat, and breathe rally racing,
Yes.
And to come in and just show up and do it is not an easy thing. No. I honestly, in the back of my head, was like, oh, I can drive fast enough, and Andrew's a badass navigator. Like, we'll go out there and do well, And I think without the mechanical issues we had this year, I mean, I think we would have still done really well. I mean, we didn't do bad. We ended up 10th. For me, that's not good, but I think in the grand scheme of things for our first one, it's pretty decent, especially getting towed in on 2 stages. So. I should be a little happier with it, I think, but that's not what I'm used to, I'll say.
Right, that's not in your DNA, no.
No, but, it's a completely different world, a completely different discipline of racing. It's completely different terrain. I mean, everything about it is 100% different than what we are used to over here. So that's kind of what makes what Brock Hager did so damn impressive. I mean, he drove an awesome, smart race, and he had no mechanicals. I mean, it was perfect. But to go over there even on your first try and never do it, it's pretty awesome.
Right. So your plan is to go back next year?
Yeah, that's my plan. It was always kind of a multi-year plan with CanAm. Okay. This first year was intended to be a learning year, and it damn sure was. So, you never know what's going to happen with things. Who knows, but the plan is to go do it for sure. I definitely don't want to go get my ass kicked and then just stay at home with my tail tucked between my legs. That's for sure.
Right.
I want to spend the year, learning and show up prepared.
Right. And more than 2 weeks preparation, and then
Yeah.
just one trip to Morocco. I
Yeah.
mean, you get
Yeah.
get as much practice as you can down there in the big sand dunes. You got the ones up in Idaho, and then you got the ones, of course, Glamis are probably the two
Yeah.
biggest in the United States. But
Yeah, for sure. And Glamis is super convenient because we leave cars out near Johnson Valley for pre-running and stuff anyway. So Glamis obviously isn't that far.
no,
So
not at all.
it's, but the cars are completely different over there. I mean, I'm used to pretty decent horsepower over here and lightweight cars where lightweight is relative, I guess, but you get over there and they're heavier and less power. So it's like riding a 125 dirt bike. I'm used to, I see something that kind of looks sketchy and I check up for it and I go through it and I have the power to just pick my speed right back up, where the cars over there, if you let off the gas, you're losing time, So it's all about momentum and keeping it going. And that took me a little bit to get used to.
Right. So let's talk more in depth about the hammers and racing, that style of racing. When you guys first came out, you raced just the UTV classes. Now you're racing UTV and the 44s?
Yep. So actually, my brother's always done both.
Okay.
But it was just kind of by chance. So the first time I'd ever seen a rock was at your race. Anything, to crawl, I would say. And even at that one, you had lines around a lot of stuff, which we took gladly. But the first, we came out pre-running in November of 2019, and that was the first time we'd ever been out there. And, CanAm had kind of a team pre-run session that we came to. We came another time in December with a little bit better idea of the setup we wanted to run and more just to learn. And then we showed up for the race. And the race went really well. We qualified 1-2, and Cody qualified first. I qualified second. We took off together side by side. Cody immediately took a wrong turn, and I inherited the lead. And Cody had a mechanical issue like 10 miles in. It was something stupid as well, like a shock bolt broke because, just a mistake on our side, I think. We were up till like 3 a.m. re-prepping cars and, again, trying to learn with all the things we didn't know, trying to do everything as right as we possibly could aside from sleep. And I think, with the shocks going off and on 100 times, and one shock bolt just got either left loose or over torqued and broke. We don't know, but kind of irrelevant. But he ended up taking a bolt out of like a sway bar and putting it in there and getting going again. But finished way back. And Kyle Chaney and I had a pretty badass battle the entire race. And he had that epic moment of running over himself after he flipped in my dust, and I went on and won, and he got second, and Cody finished 9th or something like that, maybe 19th, I can't remember. Either way, he's pissed because he qualified first and finished way back, and I won.
Is he sitting in the cab with you?
No,
Okay.
He's in the toter behind me. But either way, he'll tell you the same thing. But so the next day, I flew out like a rock star, went home, and left Cody to drive everything home. And he's over at Casey Curry's eating breakfast, and some of the Can-Am guys were there. And I don't know who said it first, but somebody's like, "Oh, why don't you just stay and run 4,400 in your UTV?" And they were joking, but Cody took it serious and went and found Dave. And Dave's like, "I guess I don't see why you can't, as long as it passes tech, And like I said, we had really nice built cars, and it did pass tech. So they let him race. And his co-driver had already flown home with me. So Chad Hughes, which is my co-driver out at Hammers, was staying all week. And Cody asked him if he would co-drive for him. And, Chad maybe was a little hesitant at first, but ended up doing it. And they had an absolute blast. And Cody, is telling us all about this and how much harder it is than UTV race and all that. And it actually got a lot of attention. Like, UTVs, I think, had raced 4,400 before, but none of them had ever really done that well. Or, obviously there's a lot of pushback against it. But he was just out there in that little 64-inch X3 and kept on going, ended up doing really well. They ended up, they had a broken A-arm, I think, whenever, going up Spooners, he and Levi Shirley got into it, and Levi accidentally gave him a little bump and smashed him into a rock, but they ended up finishing on the broken A-arm. And, I think he ended up 13th, which kind of blew everybody away, and it made quite a lot of noise. So the next year we're negotiating our contract for Can-Am, and we're like, man, we want to do both classes. And Kyle said the same thing. Cameras is a lot of freaking work to go out there and race for 4 hours. So racing two classes kind of, I won't say makes it more worth it, but it makes it more worth it,
Right.
Justifies the workload a little bit. And of course, there's always been a ton of pushback over the years, but we've done pretty damn well. I think the best any of us have done so far was I got a 7th. Cody got an 8th, and that was in 2023. Last year, Kyle would have done a hell of a lot better. I mean, he finished first physically, but then with that, had it not been for the penalty, he'd have been second or third, I think. And then after the penalty, he ended up 8th. So, I mean, we can consistently run in the top 10 on the X3s. And, we've just been building and building and building every year. And now the cars that we're running are full chassis cars. I mean, the rules kind of changed over the years where you had to run, this basic material. You couldn't have any stock chassis into the cars. So,
Right.
Which I fully agree with. I mean, I'm all for safety. We keep all the OEM geometry and all of that. The cars are still the same basic production vehicle. It's just thicker, stronger, better material.
Right, and that's necessary, because that was always my concern. Guys wanted at Dirt Riot wanted to race their UTVs, and it was like I wouldn't allow it. And
Yeah.
The reason was safety, weight difference.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you get a 6,000 pound car doing 100 miles an hour in the dust, and all of a sudden there's a 2,000 pound car stopped or doing 10 miles an hour limping along. What's the result of that going to be? I mean, we've seen collisions out there between 4,400 cars that have totally destroyed the car limping along.
Yeah, and man, you will get zero argument out of me on that. I fully agree. I think that kind of comes back to, well, three things. Number one is the driver. I don't think it should just be free for all. Anybody with a fully built UTV should be allowed to race 4,400, because there is a big difference in speed and horsepower and weight and all of these things, and you take somebody and put them in a UTV, and then you put them in, Jason Shearer's 4,400 car, and obviously they're going to be able to do a lot more in that 4,400 car and get away with a lot more than they can in a UTV.
Right.
So I do not think, somebody that doesn't have enough experience should be allowed to do it. So I think there's definitely some promoter discretion that should come into play there, and somehow without showing favoritism. Anybody that's got the credentials should maybe be allowed to do it. But the cars need to be inspected pretty damn close to make sure they're safe, because it's a big difference, But then on the flip side, in Baja at Dakar, I mean, you have dirt bikes and quads out there with trophy trucks, and trophy trucks go a hell of a lot faster than 4,400 cars do. And a dirt bike has a hell of a lot less surrounding it than, a side-by-side does. But I will say at Dakar, we're out there with those T5s, and at Dakar, it's not like everybody is going the same direction all the time. If somebody gets lost or a waypoint is hard to find, like, people are going everywhere. And I nearly got smashed by a couple trash trucks, but you just have to be conscious and not do stupid stuff, And also, I will also say that there's no way you're going to be within, 300 meters of another vehicle that is going a different direction or faster than you, and you're not going to know it, because you have so many alarms going on, like anti-collision alarms going off in the car, that you can't stand it. I mean, you want to go the other direction.
Especially at Dakar.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think some of that stuff could be brought over here, which would make things safer. I mean, it's pretty eye-opening at how much safer it is over there, to be honest with you.
Right. I have a story that relates a lot to that. And we were down in Baja. I was running with a trophy truck team and Pistol Pete and Soren,
Yep.
and we were at Mike's Sky Ranch pre-running for a night, and BJ Baldwin was there, his dad Bobby, and a bunch of other guys, and these Canadian ATV riders came in, and I got to talking to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're really fast, and this is our first race." And I said, "Well, in the middle of the night, there's going to be a time where you're going to see headlights coming up behind you, and it's going to look like a city is chasing you down, and you need to get out of the way because those are the trophy trucks, and
Yep.
they are moving much faster than you can move." And the guy was like, "There's no way trophy trucks are catching us," and I'm like, "Oh yes, they are." And we argued about it, and I asked BJ. I said, "BJ, how soon will you guys catch the slower of the UTV or the quads?" And he goes, "Oh, we'll catch them by this point." And the kid was like, "There's no way." And so BJ took him and another one of the riders for a ride. They left out, went back toward Valley T in the pre-runner, which is only like a 75% of the trophy truck.
Yep.
And he drove them back in on the road, and they came back and they were like, "All right, we're going to move over." Because they asked him, they go, "How fast are you going?" We're doing 60. He goes, "Oh my God, we're only doing like 25 down this road."
And that goes back to what I was saying about in the 4400 race, the driver. I mean, I promise you, nobody wants to get smashed by a big truck less than I do.
Right.
So anytime that we see somebody fast coming, especially in the desert, I mean, we get the hell out of the way. I'm not trying to hold anybody up. I want them to be gone and out of their dust as quickly as possible,
Right.
So, and the same, like we have our spots where, I mean, we murder those trucks because if it's tight and twisty, I mean, we're so much more nimble. We can get through there a lot quicker, even some of the rock trails where it's very tight for them, we snake right through there. So, I mean, we have our spots where we have advantages as well,
Correct.
So, I mean, it really does play for a pretty cool race, in my opinion. But, they don't want to hit us. We don't want to get hit by them. And so as long as all the drivers are respectful of that, I don't foresee many problems. Obviously accidents happen, but, anybody could flip somewhere in the desert and, create dust and somebody hit it. That's the nature of desert racing. That can happen anywhere, but
Right.
if a car is laying broadside and, 4400 hit in the middle of the trail and 4400 hits at 100 in the dust, I don't care if it's a UTV or
Another
a big
44,
car.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's going to be really bad,
True,
So,
and that's the risk of racing. I mean, that happens.
That's it.
Can happen anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just, and again, I do think that there are systems out there that could help with that for sure. I don't know the reasoning. We don't have them. I don't know any of that. It's way above my pay grade. But now that I've seen it, I can tell you it'd be a good thing.
Oh, you just need to go up and ask that question to Dave.
Yeah. Maybe not on. I don't mind when I'm hanging out at his building while we're testing. I think he's got enough to worry about on race weekend. I know my place.
Yeah, Dave and I go way back. He was a competitor in our rock crawling series before he even thought about KOH. So
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I've had my ass chewed a few times. I'm not scared.
First time I came across Dave was being very demonstrative, and with my son, and I just walked up and stood between the two, and I said, "What is going on here?" And Rich goes, "Oh, Dave's mad about this, this, and this." And I just turned around and looked at Dave, face to face, and just started laughing at him, and then walked away. And Dave just kind of vapor locked. And he at one point he told everybody he's the only guy that ever vapor locked me.
I had asked you to a driver's meeting one time in 21 because I didn't have my face mask on. That was a good one right in front of everybody.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But on the flip side, I understand where he was coming from. I mean, I'm sure he had just got his ass chewed out there by somebody for a bunch of people in the meeting with no mask on,
Right.
And he needed to make an example, and I didn't have mine on, and so okay, I screwed up. Yep. I can take it, no problem.
Yeah, even now that we look back, and that all that stuff was so bogus, but that's a different.
Oh, for sure.
That's a different conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't. It's kind of irrelevant. The point was that he was able to put that race together in a time when nobody could do anything, and that was one of the conditions. As much as we all thought it was ridiculous being in the middle of the desert, but we needed to be respectful of that requirement,
Right.
And I wasn't, and got chewed out for it.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, we looked pretty good. We stopped doing Dirt Riot in 2000 after the 2019 series, and going into 20, it was killing me that we weren't doing it. But I just knew that I physically couldn't keep up any longer doing both Dirt Riot and We Rock. And since We Rock was more like 80% of our business, that should have been our focus. So all of a sudden, COVID hits, and we had to postpone some of the rock crawls. I would have had to cancel most of our racing series because most of those states wouldn't have let us race where we were going. We'd have had to move everything to Texas and Utah.
Yeah.
Which would have been fine for some of the people, but not for, not when we were doing, 9 different states. So. Yeah,
that was one of the things that actually worked out good for us was in 2020, Texplex had its, short course series had its first year of paying out big money and trying to put a legitimate series together. And it got a huge shot in the arm because it was one of the only places racing. We were simultaneously racing Works, and all of a sudden Works to cancel, most of their races. And Texplex was getting 200 cars show up,
Wow.
And I mean, it was an hour from the house and it paid really well. I mean, it was like a match made in heaven for us, and they grew it over the years, and it was a lot of fun. I miss it a little bit, but good things all come to an end at some point.
Right. So you guys do a little bit better now than 2 10x10 pop-ups in the desert, right? You guys got garages and everything and setups?
Yeah, we got that first year we brought everything out in an enclosed trailer, and now it takes 4 rigs to get everything there. Which, I wonder why I'm doing sometimes, but it is what it is. We don't live right down the road, although, we are right in the middle of purchasing 5 acres right there on the lake bed. So, the goal is to kind of get a building up there in the next year or two, to make things a little easier. But we intend to keep on racing this race for a long time, and even if we quit, I mean, a lot of people go out there to ride, so I'm sure it's still going to be worth more than we have in it, I hope. It's always the goal with anything in real estate, I guess.
Yes.
But it's kind of funny because actually I talk every day about how much I'd like to scale things back a little bit from where we are. But the first year we showed up, we didn't even have food hardly or anything. We just didn't know, and didn't understand what a pain it is to go get food. So now we have everything catered for all of our guys every night. And we're very lucky. We have a lot of good friends that, even especially with the catering, and his name's Brian. He's a good friend of George's, who's our suspension tuner. And Of course we pay them something for their time, but not full pop. They do it because they want to help us and they love being part of it. We love having them. They're our friends, so we couldn't, we're not rich guys that can just pay for everything. So we're very fortunate in that we have a lot of good friends that are willing to support us and, make this all possible for us, to be honest with you.
Right. So let's talk about your immediate family, not your brother or your parents. Let's talk about your wife. How'd you guys
Yep.
meet?
So we have been together right under 20 years now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, it'll be 20 years in April. So when I was I had a good friend, my now brother-in-law. He, I knew him from racing quads and motocross, and he quit for a while, and then started back again. We started hanging out again a little bit, and he had his now wife was his girlfriend. He's like, oh man, she's got a sister. We ought to introduce you. I was like, I've got a girlfriend. I'm not the player type of guy, so it never really had an opportunity to meet her or anything like that. And he said it again one weekend. We're at a race, and I was like, well, coincidentally, actually, just girlfriend and I just broke up a couple nights ago. So yeah, I'll meet her. And I had a broken leg at the time, actually. So went out to a local race where HD was going to race, and they tricked her into coming out there, not knowing she was going to meet me or anything. Well, they had said that she was blonde, and they had another friend with her that was blonde, but that was not her. And so I'm trying to chat up that girl, and it actually ended up being another buddy's girlfriend. So that was weird for a minute, but went back to HD's place that night, and we hung out, and her sister put her number in my phone, and went from there. But kind of crazy thinking, I was 19 at the time, and I just turned 39. It was right after her birthday, which is in April. So April will be 20 years that we've been together. We dated we had kind of a crazy life for a long time. I lived at home, and she kind of did. We were both in college, and she lived about an hour and a half from me and went to college in Denton, which was 2 hours from me. And so, let's see, Wednesday nights, we would go over to HD's house and stay the night and hang out. Then Thursday morning, I'd get up, go back to work. She would go, which was at our shop. She would go to school Wednesday morning and then go to work after that. She was off on Fridays. So then Thursday nights, she would come to my parents' place, and we'd hang out all weekend. Then Sunday morning, she'd get up at 2 a.m, go to class in Benton, then stay at her parents' house on Monday nights and Tuesday nights, and then Wednesdays we're back at HD's. So it was like basically living out of her car for a couple of years. And then ended up, after she graduated college, getting a job in Greenville at L3, which she still works at now, which is a defense contractor here. Well, they're a huge company, but they have a place in Greenville. And then at that point, we got a rent house, moved in together, and we lived in that for a couple of years while we kind of planned out our house. Built that 13 years ago, and we got married in 2013. And yeah, like I said, I don't feel like we've been together that long, but it's been a while.
And her name is
Brianna.
Brianna. Okay, great.
Yeah,
And
not Brianna, which she gets called all the time.
yeah, I understand. So then, kids planned at all, or
No, I think we're gonna Clooney it.
okay?
I think George Clooney have kids. I don't know. I just remember that off a movie quote. But anyway, no kids. I don't think. Things happen, I guess, but we don't have plans for them. Cody's got a kid due in March, and so I'll have a niece, and I've already got a niece and a nephew. Or actually, I got a bunch of nieces and nephews. Think about it, but yeah, for us, I mean, honestly, we kind of like our lifestyle, and
Perfect.
we're gonna keep on living it.
Yep. Do what works for you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, great. I want to say thank you so much for taking this time on your drive to talk about your life and your racing and everything. And it's been a pleasure. I wish you and your brother good luck this KOH coming up, and stay safe out there in that 4400 run.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. We're coming with some pretty cool cars this year, and I can't wait for everybody to see them in a couple of days. They should be by far the most competitive thing we've brought to the table so far. So I'm sure we're definitely going to need some luck on our side, but I feel like we're getting closer to being able to make a real run at this, if not this year, So I'm really looking forward to it, and I appreciate your time as well. And yeah, thanks for reaching out, man. Let me, tell people about myself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And look forward to watching the rest of your career. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Where do you live, by the way?
Well, that's a good question. Our permanent residence is Idaho. We're currently in Northern California, a town called Placerville up near the Rubicon, and we taking care of my parents, or taking care of my mom at this point, and she's 86, and I'm just glad that I'm in a position, or we're in a position to where we can do that. We're still helping with the rock crawling series, but I brought a partner in, and I do work for the Rubicon Trail Foundation. I'm on the board of directors for that. I'm on the board of directors for the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. Still do the Four Low magazine, four-wheel drive magazine, and of course the podcast. So I keep busy, but I'm kind of semi-retired.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that day, I think. But
you still have a long time to go.
I know. I mean, but all those things you mentioned, that's stuff that I'm finding myself wanting to participate in more these days. To this day, I have never just gone and driven a side-by-side for fun, like just gone out and trail road. It has always been either racing or pre-running for a race, or you just call practicing for a race. But it was always with a purpose for racing or testing or whatever it was. But, I look at all these trail riding events, and whether it's at Sand Hollow or Rubicon or wherever, and it looks like so much fun. And I feel like I really am doing myself a disservice by not taking advantage of my situation to go do that stuff a little bit more. So maybe we'll see you around at one of them here soon.
Absolutely. I would suggest, if you're going to do the Rubicon, do it with the Jeepers Jamboree group. In July, they do 3 events. The first one is a UTV run through the Rubicon. That's, they got guided. It's pretty much guided, and it's catered and all that kind of stuff. And it's really a way to see it the first time. And then they do the big run, which is all the Jeeps and the Toyota pickups and the race cars and that kind of stuff, and it's adults only. And then they do a family run the next weekend, and so the kids can come and everything else. So it's they tie up the Rubicon for a while, but it's well worth it, and it's a great organization to run with. I'm doing it again this year. I haven't done it in a couple of years, but I'm doing it this year with Mark McMillan from the Off-Road Racing. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he's won the 1,000 5 times, and he's also the president of the board of directors for Ormhoff. So he's never been on the Rubicon, so I'm taking him on that trip.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's
Good
the type
time.
of stuff that I want to start enjoying a little bit.
Well, excellent. Well, again, thank you. Continue your drive. Be safe, and good luck, and balls to the wall.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, Hunter. Bye. Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.